Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Eternal Sonata playthrough. It is time to enter the Walava Cave. Now, I would like to say that I have a very good reason behind why the Walava Cave is called the Walava Cave. But
feels like summer all of a sudden.
I've got something, I don't know whether I believe it.
And it was just a little while ago. If the weather keeps changing back and forth like this, we're all gonna end up getting sick.
There seem to be pools of magma around here. Let's all be very careful passing through this place.
So yes, basically what the Eternal Sonata wiki suggests anyway is the root of Walava is because Wa is a sort of reference to Wawa, which refers to an imitative word or onomatopoeia, the sound of altering the resonance of musical notes to extend expressiveness. I'm not 100% sure, but there does seem to be a proper Wikipedia page on this thing. And they've even got a little... yeah, they've got the whole thing on a guitar, where it kind of... that sort of thing. I'll also say that I do quite like the song for Walava Cave, because it's called Rock and Burn You, which is... that's just a really good name, I feel.
I am not gonna lose this battle.
I believe that when we were going up the Sharp Mountains, the song was White Mirror, but I'm not 100% sure. Also think I was probably slightly wrong with some of the stuff when we were on the boat, because the theme for there was definitely Quiet Defender. Strolling Hearts, I believe, was played during the cutscene between Polka and Frederick, but once again, not 100% sure. Some of the other songs that we have heard since then are Peace Valued, the Japanese transliteration originally being An Inspection which values harmony. You can see why they changed these things, because they don't make sense. And you also had From Tomorrow. And that's basically that. And then we are really rapidly reaching the final point of Eternal Sonata. Even though we're only halfway through and there is still a lot more stuff occurring. To be fair, there is quite a lot of time that is dedicated to the final dungeon and the optional dungeon. If they weren't as long as they were, we'd be done by like part 40-ish. But no, they are very long, to the point of we'll be dungeoning for the last 10-11 parts of the playthrough. Which in part makes me just go, oh my god, what am I going to find to talk about? Because that sort of stuff is just like, when you're stuck in the same place for an extraordinarily long amount of time, your brain just goes, oh, not sure what to do with these things. So I suppose since we're in the middle of an active volcano, which really we should all be burning and dying right now. One of the things that I think is always a bit of a confusion with people is what's the difference between lava and magma? Because often you do sort of have them interchangeable, and they're kind of really not. Lava is the molten rock expelled by a volcano during an eruption. So if it's outside of a volcano, it's lava. If it's inside of the volcano, it's magma. Because magma is a mixture of molten or semi-molten rock, volatiles and solids that's found beneath the surface of the Earth, and is expected to exist on other terrestrial planets and some natural satellites. So, lava is basically the extrusive equivalent of magma. So, whilst it is inside the volcano, it would be very much like this because it would be constantly heated, and so it would constantly be a very fiery colour. When it becomes lava, it begins to crystallise and effectively becomes very rocky and very slow moving, but it's still incredibly hot. And something that can happen is that, with magma anyway, is capable of intruding into adjacent rocks, like just working its way into little holes. It can, yes, extrude onto the surface as lava and be involved in an explosive ejection as tephra, or fragmented rock. So, yeah, basically tephra is just any fragmental material produced by a volcanic eruption, and ultimately that will form pyroclastic rock. And I do really like the term pyroclastic. It's really awesome, because pyrobit means fire and the clastic means broken. And the reason that that sticks in my head is because so there is a thing, well, there's a show called Showstopper, an improvised musical, and it's a really brilliant show where the actors on stage are meant to, well, basically they create an entire musical from scratch, and it's magical to behold. So the audience suggests like the genre of music, so some people could say, oh, I want a reggae, I want a bit of Bollywood, I want something in the vein of Dear Evan Hansen, I want something in the vein of Hamilton. That's a very common one, I feel. And then they just do it. They create the musical with those genres and so on and so forth, with the name that the audience have come up with a brand new story, and it's just glorious. I mean, the first one I saw, because I've seen it twice now, because it's been to the theatre where I used to work twice, and the first time, oh god, I can't even remember what the musical was called. Oh, that's really bad. Because I really enjoyed that one. But basically, it was based on the England football team's locker room after they'd lost to Iceland in the World Cup. And it was the story of a bottle boy who worked his way up to the top and brought them back to victory, and it was just a delight. When football was the topic, I was just like, oh god, this is going to be a long evening, but no, it was so funny and absolute delight. When it came back the second time and I watched it, it was based on Pompeii, and it was called Some Like It Hot, because obviously it's a delight. But I can't remember whether it was during the interval or at some point during the show, someone, they asked for a word or a phrase, and someone shouted out pyroclastic flow, which is basically a scientific term for a fast-moving current of hot gas and volcanic matter. And when this was said, there was a collective, "Oh, someone knows their stuff." And then after that point, the words pyroclastic flow managed to work their way into pretty much everything possible. And it was just an absolute joy. And so whenever I see the word pyroclastic flow, which I have to say is not really all that often, this is probably the first time that I've seen the word used anywhere, because I've looked it up, since I saw that show. And it just made me think back to it and thinking, yes. I can't really, to be fair, remember a lot of the songs from that show, which is a shame because it's the only time that musical will have ever been performed. And some of the songs were really good. But I know that one of them was something along the lines of "Love is like a lava flow." And then after that, nope. But thankfully, when I was working at the theatre, I did some vox pops, so asked the audience what they were thinking of the show to try and help persuade people to come. It's a common thing that a lot of theatres and shows do to try and sell themselves, because you tend to trust other people a lot more than you do just the general marketing of a show, because you've got another human's face who wouldn't be saying it if they didn't believe it. Most likely, I mean, there's always the chance that you've got actors, but I was about to say, I can tell you now that none of the people I asked were actors, but some of them were actors, but they weren't actors that we paid. They were actually people who'd come to see the show who also happened to be actors. And when I did that, I'd also been given permission to record some of the songs in the show, just so that I had a whole unit of a song to be able to create the video around. And the one that I ended up going for, just because it was the shortest and it was the best example that I had that seemed to work with the vibe I was going for, was Love is Like a Lava Flow. And so if you ever want to hear that song in some form or another, you'll just have to locate the Facebook page or Twitter page for the theatre where I used to work and just rummage through until you see Showstopper, an improvised musical, and what our audience thought of it. But yeah, I will always think back very fondly of that show. I'd love to see it come back. Like, really would. Like, I would be there in an instant. But whether it does or not is a different kettle of fish. Because improvised musicals, let's just say, they're very difficult to sell. So, whether it does come back or not, there's not much I can do about it, but I would love to see it return to Nottingham, because I just had so much fun. And I will say, I'm getting really very lost in the Walava Cave. It's very easy to get lost here because there's so many routes down and up and around, and yeah, so hopefully I have gotten everything in here. But I will certainly tell you now that I cannot guarantee it. It doesn't really matter in the end, because there's only one really important thing in this particular cave, and that is right towards the end of the dungeon, actually. There's a somewhat big enemy that will be standing in your pathway as you head towards the exit. And if you kill it, you will see a little X on the ground. If you examine that X, well, a little something will occur. And that makes me very excited. You'll certainly want to be healed up before you examine said X. But it's certainly worth your while, let's put it that way.
Just a little fabulousness. Well, I did it!
And thank God we are pretty much at level 25 now, and Self has learned Deadly Orbit. Yes! As I said before, I really like whenever the party learn moves that have a lot of attacks in them, because quite often they tend to be the ones that will cause the most damage. And Deadly Orbit for Sonata is one of those. It's just an absolute beast of a move.
Now you will sleep.
And we are very, very, very nearly at the end of this dungeon now. We've just got this fight, and then we're hopefully going to come across that X. And you can definitively see exactly what is going on there.
Now you will sleep.
And these guys, they thought they made a smart move.
Were you impressed? Good.
Blumberneck, Frederick's doing incredibly well for levels right now, so I suspect I'm probably going to go into this fight with Beat Polka and Salsa, because they're the only ones that need levels at the minute. And there we go, that was the enemy. There's the little X. So let's set ourselves up. And you have to defeat that enemy in order to do this. And yes, just be very prepared. And that should pretty much do it. Do I want Frederick in there? don't really need Frederick in there, but... oh well, I suppose I'm going again for the highest damage output possible for this. And look who it is! It's Captain Dolce! Because we have found some more of her treasure. And so obviously we're going to have to go take her down. Which, obviously, once again, be careful, because she can be very deadly. Especially considering this is the end of the dungeon, you might not have been expecting this. But if you're around where I am, really you should not have any problems whatsoever.
That's right, worship me.
Although, she's still incredibly deadly.
Now you will rest.
I highly suspect that Sansa's probably going to kick the bucket for a minute. Now that is a surprise. Like, go for the weakest, you nutjob.
That's right, worship me.
Burning spindle! Did you enjoy that?
I will say, I'm not sure I am a strong believer in Dolce's tactics. They don't seem all that smart, if I'm honest.
Now you will rest.
I mean, I probably didn't really do the smartest move in bringing in any real healers with me, but considering this entire area is covered in darkness, Polka would have been pretty useless outside of using a nether wave.
Did you enjoy that?
But now that we've got her cornered, all it is just... it's time. And, oh! Sent from heaven and shatter the earth, deadly orbit. Oh, I love it! And deadly orbit is like one of my favourite moves in the game. It's amazing. And also, this is the problem of rounding round her. You can very quickly end up in a bit of trouble like that because she'll just throw everything at you. But as long as you know, do a triangle formation around her, it really does make her life a little bit more difficult in trying to hit all of you at once. Apart from when you're in a triangle like this, you tend to want to go behind her rather than in front of her, but it's all good. And I think that if this doesn't do it, the next move most likely will.
Kinda prickly, huh?
Burning spindle! Did you enjoy that?
I did quite, to be fair, because you're now dead. And also, my god, look at how much experience she gives. Like, it's ridiculous. It's definitely recommended that you do this because, like, look. That's taken us from level 25 to level 28. And Orzel Biari is an amazing move as well. It's basically the light version of Piu Grave. And, yeah, like, because ultimately you want to really be around that level for fighting the real boss of the end of this dungeon. Because obviously at the end of every dungeon is a boss, and it's always involved in a cutscene. This wasn't a proper cutscene, therefore it's not the actual boss. This is just an optional boss. And yes, you want to be around that for your boss, and annoyingly that now means that Polka is very far behind in the levels. But it's okay, and the reason it's okay is because it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
So hard your brains will go inside out.
And this actually works out quite nicely for me, because one of the things I always like to do with my boss fights is where they are thematically appropriate, I like to have a certain set of characters in my party. And for what we are about to face, having Polka and Frederick here is definitely where I want to be, because it is incredibly appropriate for what we are about to face. But in the meantime, I really desperately want to get out of this bloomin' dungeon. The fire is going to my head. And also the bar on the right hand side of the screen is really driving me potty. I was hoping it was just a glitch for that one screen, but no. For some bizarre reason, whenever there's like a really warm area in Eternal Sonata, like the entirety of Walava Cave, there's like a massive tear down the right hand side of the screen. It's only the right hand side of the screen? And I think that what they tried to do was put a kind of heat filter over it, but missed the far right hand side of the screen, and so that was the result. It could also just be potentially a scratch on my disc, it could be anything, but it drove me potty that was there. I know I haven't mentioned it throughout the entirety of this part, and that's because I've been busy talking about other things, which I'm glad I have been doing, because otherwise this would just be a really boring part, but we're going through an exciting dungeon. But yeah, that little graphical situation has just, like, oh, it's been driving me potty. It drove me potty whilst I was recording, because I was just like, no, go away, I don't need you, just sod off. But it's fine, it's gone away now, and with that saving up, we are really close to the end of the chapter now. So, don't want beats or salsa. Let's throw salsa in there because it's thematically appropriate for where we are going to be located. Because once we get out of the Walava Cave, we're going to be somewhere that you're probably going to remember. So, after setting our items, making sure we're all healed up, let's get out of this cave.